Walk into any Lowe's on a Saturday morning and you'll see the same scene playing out. DIYers wandering the aisles, grabbing tools based on nothing but brand recognition and price tags. Here's what nobody at Lowe's will ever tell you. You're about to overpay for at least half the tools in your cart, and some of those premium brands you're reaching for perform worse than options costing a third of the price. I've spent 15 years testing tools from every major retailer, and what I discovered about Lowe's pricing strategy is going to change how you shop forever. We're exposing 12 tools you should absolutely never buy at Lowe's, plus 5 that are actually worth grabbing. Starting with the biggest ripoff hiding in plain sight, those Bosch router bits sitting in the premium tool section at $49 for a basic set. Here's the thing, professional woodworkers won't admit in public. Router bits are one of the most overpriced tool categories in existence, and Lowe's marks them up even higher than most places. That same Bosch set performs identically to a $22 Freud set from other retailers. Both are manufactured using carbide from the same suppliers. The cutting performance, edge retention, and precision are virtually indistinguishable in real-world use. Cabinet makers who route hundreds of linear feet weekly report no measurable difference in quality, but Lowe's positions Bosch as premium, slaps on that blue packaging, and watches people pay double because the name sounds German and therefore superior. The profit margin on those router bits is roughly 60%. I've tested both brands side by side on hardwood, plywood, and MDF. The edge life is nearly identical. The finish quality is the same. You're paying for a brand name that means nothing when both bits are cutting the same groove. Buy your bits online from specialty woodworking retailers, where a premium white-side set costs less than basic Bosch at Lowe's. Speaking of overpriced hand tools, those Irwin Quick Grip clamps at Lowe's are pure profit extraction disguised as convenience. A 12-inch Quick Grip runs about $19.99, and people grab them without thinking because they need clamps right now for a project. But here's what makes this painful. Harbor Freight sells functionally identical trigger clamps for $6.99 that perform the same clamping force and last just as long. The grip mechanism, the pad size, even the spring tension are basically the same. I've tested both side by side during furniture builds and cabinet assembly, and the only real difference is the color of the plastic handle. Irwin gets away with this pricing because they've convinced people that Quick Grip is somehow professional grade. It's not. It's a spring-loaded clamp that squeezes things together. That's it. Professional woodworkers buy the cheap ones by the dozen because clamps disappear on job sites faster than free donuts at a contractor meeting. At Lowe's, pricing. You're paying premium money for a tool that's fundamentally basic. The math gets worse when you realize most projects need 6 to 8 clamps minimum. Suddenly, you're spending $120 at Lowe's versus $40 anywhere else for the identical clamping capacity. Then we've got the DeWalt cordless drill and driver combo kits that Lowe's positions as their flagship power tool deal. These yellow box sets run anywhere from $149 to $299 depending on battery capacity. Here's the reality check that'll save you over $100. Those exact same DeWalt kits sell for 30 to 40% less during seasonal sales at other retailers. DeWalt uses the same motor designs, same battery platform, and same basic components across multiple model numbers. Professional contractors wait for Black Friday sales or buy refurbished units that perform identically to new for half the price. But Lowe's counts on impulse buyers who need a drill today and don't realize they're paying a premium for nothing but current year packaging. Moving to something that seems like a bargain but absolutely isn't, those Cobalt Mechanics tool sets that Lowe's pushes as their house brand value option. The 268-piece set runs about $129, and at first glance it seems like you're getting hundreds of tools for decent money, except here's what you're actually getting. Dozens of duplicate sockets in sizes you'll never use, cheap ratchets that skip teeth after 6 months, and combination wrenches made from metal softer than a politician's promise. The Powell mechanism inside uses fewer teeth than professional-grade ratchets, which means each tooth carries more load and wears faster. The combination wrenches flex and round bolt heads because the chrome vanadium alloy is softer than what Craftsman uses. And those hundreds of pieces includes 3 different extension lengths for every socket size, which sounds great until you realize you only ever use 1 or 2 lengths. It's mathematical inflation. Professional mechanics never recommend cobalt for serious work. Better strategy is buying individual tools from better brands as you need them. Moving to something that sounds premium but actually wastes your money, those spider hole saw kits sitting near the electrical supplies at $42.99. Hole saws are one of those tools where quality genuinely matters because cutting clean holes through studs and subflooring requires teeth that stay sharp. Spider positions themselves as professional grade with aggressive marketing about their tooth design, but electricians and plumbers who actually use hole saws daily will tell you the truth. Spider bits dull faster than Milwaukee or Diablo equivalents, and the arbor system makes bit changes slower and more frustrating. The pilot bit wanders during initial contact, which means your holes end up slightly off center. And here's the worst part. That $43 set from Lowe's contains maybe 6 common sizes, while a comparable Milwaukee set with better tooth geometry costs $52 but lasts 3 times longer. The math actually favors spending more up front because replacing dull spider bits twice equals paying for 2 sets. I've burned through both brands on renovation projects, and the Milwaukee bits were still cutting clean holes after 100 locations, while the spider set needed replacing halfway through. Here's one that'll surprise anyone who thinks brand names equal quality. Those Stanley FatMax tape measures that Lowe's sells for about $24.99 for the 25-foot version. Stanley invented the modern tape measure, so surely their premium FatMax line is worth the extra money, right? Wrong. That FatMax tape uses the exact same blade material, coating, and hook design as the basic Stanley tapes selling for $12. The difference is the housing is chunkier and has some rubberized grip sections. That's it. The blade doesn't extend any farther before flopping over. The markings aren't more visible. The hook doesn't grab any better. You're paying double for a thicker case and some marketing about durability that doesn't translate to actual performance differences. Carpenters doing framing work prefer the Milwaukee or Lowe's own Craftsman tapes because they actually engineered better standout, which is the distance the blade extends before bending. That matters when you're measuring across long spans. But Stanley rests on name recognition while delivering minimal innovation. The FatMax line is basically the tool equivalent of adding racing stripes to a minivan and calling it sporty. Save yourself the money and buy either a basic Stanley for half the price or spend the same money on a Milwaukee tape that actually extends 3 feet farther before drooping. Let's hit something that seems necessary but is actually a complete waste of shelf space. Those Blue Hawk utility knives that Lowe's house brands for about $8.99. Utility knives are perhaps the simplest tool in existence, a handle that holds replaceable razor blades. That's literally the entire mechanical function. Yet Lowe's manages to sell an inferior version for more money than better options elsewhere. The blade lock mechanism on Blue Hawk knives fails constantly. The slider that's supposed to hold the blade at different lengths loosens up after minimal use, which means you're constantly fiddling with it instead of just cutting things. The blade storage compartment that holds spare blades either doesn't close properly or closes so tightly you need pliers to open it. And the ergonomics are terrible for anyone doing extended cutting work. The grip is too narrow and the balance is wrong, causing hand fatigue during drywall scoring or carpet cutting. Professional installers never use these disposable feeling knives because they fail during actual work. They spend $15 on a Milwaukee Fastback or similar quality knife that feels solid, locks the blade securely, and doesn't fall apart after 2 weeks. The Blue Hawk exists purely as a cheap option to put in the cart alongside other impulse purchases, but cheap and effective are not the same thing. Spend the extra $6 on a real utility knife from a manufacturer that understands how humans actually use the tool. Moving into the lawn and garden section, those cobalt string trimmers and leaf blowers are pure profit for Lowe's disguised as reasonable pricing. The cordless string trimmer runs about $149 with battery, but use one for more than trimming a postage stamp-sized lawn, and the inadequacy becomes obvious. The motor bogs down in anything thicker than dandelions. The battery drains in 20 minutes, and the bump feed head jams constantly. Echo, Steel, even Ryobi equivalents outperform Cobalt because those companies understand outdoor power equipment. The leaf blowers have the same issues. Low CFM ratings that can't move wet leaves, batteries that die halfway through clearing a driveway, and plastic construction that cracks easily. Landscapers never use cobalt outdoor equipment because it won't survive commercial use. Now here's a category where Lowe's really shows their markup game, those Task Force screwdriver sets near the checkout lanes for $19.99. Yet Lowe's house brand Task Force screwdrivers manage to be worse than dollar store equivalents while costing significantly more. The Phillips heads round out after minimal use because the metal isn't properly hardened. The flat heads are too thick to fit into most screw slots. Klein, Wera, even basic Craftsman screwdrivers cost about the same per piece but use better steel. Professional electricians wouldn't touch Task Force tools, even if they were free, because stripped Phillips heads cost more in frustration than quality tools cost up front. Here's one that sounds professional but delivers disappointment every time: those Goldblatt drywall tools that Lowe's stocks throughout their construction supplies section. The taping knife blades flex wrong during finishing work, leaving ridges and inconsistent joint compound application. The stainless steel isn't actually stainless. It stains and corrodes after minimal use. Professional drywall finishers never use Goldblatt tools because proper finishing requires knives that maintain precise flex and edge geometry. They spend more money on Marshalltown tools that feel balanced and maintain their edge. The mud pans crack and warp because the plastic is too thin, and the corner tools are particularly terrible because the angles aren't precisely machined, which means your corners end up slightly rounded instead of sharp. But let's flip this around, because not everything at Lowe's is overpriced garbage. There are actually 5 tools worth buying there, and some of these might surprise you. First up, those Craftsman V20 lithium toolkits that Lowe's acquired exclusive rights to after Stanley Black and Decker bought the brand. The cordless drill and impact driver combo runs about $129 with batteries. And here's why that's actually a legitimate deal. Craftsman tools are manufactured in the same facilities as Porter Cable and Black & Decker, using essentially identical components and motors. But Lowe's prices them lower than equivalent DeWalt or Milwaukee options because they need the Craftsman brand to compete with Home Depot's exclusive Ryobi lineup. You're getting 20-volt lithium performance with brushless motors and decent runtime for about 40% less than yellow or red brand equivalents. Professional contractors are starting to carry Craftsman as backup tools because the performance gap narrowed significantly in recent years, while the price gap stayed wide. The lifetime warranty on hand tools and 3-year warranty on power tools means you're covered if anything fails. These aren't top-tier professional tools, but they're legitimately good value for DIYers and weekend warriors who need reliable cordless performance without spending premium money. Second tool actually worth buying from Lowe's is their Cobalt 3/8 and 1/4-inch socket sets, specifically the ones with the flex head ratchets. Yes, I criticized Cobalt earlier, but these socket sets are legitimately well made and priced fairly at about $69.99 for a comprehensive set. The ratchets use a 72-tooth mechanism that's smooth and reliable. The sockets are 6-point design, which grips fasteners better than 12-point alternatives. And the metal quality is actually decent chrome vanadium that doesn't round out bolts during normal use. Mechanics doing automotive repair report these sets holding up well for years of regular use, which is surprising given Cobalt's reputation in other categories. The flex head design lets you approach fasteners from angles that would be impossible with fixed head ratchets, which matters tremendously when working in tight engine compartments or underneath vehicles. At $70 for a complete socket set with a good ratchet, this represents better value than buying equivalent Craftsman or Husky sets that cost more for similar quality. The chrome finish is thick enough to resist corrosion, and the size markings are laser etched rather than stamped, which means they stay legible after years of use. Third legitimate purchase at Lowe's is the Speed Square from Swanson, usually priced around $9 to $12 depending on size. This is a true professional-grade layout tool that carpenters and framers rely on for every cut angle and measurement. The aluminum construction is precisely milled with deeply etched markings that remain visible after years of abuse. The lip that rides against board edges is perfectly square and thick enough to withstand impacts and drops. Layout books are included that show common rafter angles, which saves time during roof framing. The tool is so fundamental and well designed that it hasn't needed significant updates since it was invented. Professional framers carry multiple speed squares on job sites, and Lowe's pricing is competitive with anywhere else you'd find them. This is one of those tools where brand and retailer don't matter much because the product itself is standardized and reliable. Whether you buy at Lowe's or elsewhere, you're getting the same quality, so you might as well grab it when you're there buying lumber. Fifth and final tool actually worth buying at Lowe's is their Blue Hawk torpedo level, priced at about $8.99. This is surprisingly well made for a house brand. The vials are accurately calibrated, the frame is cast aluminum rather than cheap plastic, and the magnets are strong enough to actually stick to steel studs and pipes during installation work. Professional plumbers and electricians need levels constantly for ensuring pipes run at proper grade and conduit mounts are straight. This little 9-inch torpedo level performs as well as Empire or Stanley equivalents, costing twice as much. The vials are readable from multiple angles, and the magnetic edge is flush, so it doesn't interfere with accurate readings. At under $10, you can keep multiples throughout your tool collection without worrying about cost. One stays with plumbing tools, another with electrical supplies, and a third in your general toolbox. This is one instance where Lowe's house brand actually delivers quality at a fair price, rather than cutting corners to hit a margin target. So there's your reality check on Lowe's tool selection. 12 categories where you're getting price gouged or sold inferior quality, and 5 items actually worth grabbing. The pattern becomes obvious once you understand retail strategy. Big box stores make money on brand premiums and house brand margins, not on delivering best value to customers. Your job as a smart buyer is recognizing which tools are genuinely worth the retail price and which ones are pure profit extraction. Skip the overpriced router bits, clamps, power tool combo kits, and house brand garbage. Grab the Craftsman V20 kits when they're on sale, stock up on Cobalt socket sets if you need affordable mechanics tools, and don't overthink simple items like levels and layout squares. The thousands you save by avoiding overpriced categories lets you invest in truly professional grade tools where quality actually matters. Remember, the best deal isn't the cheapest price or the most recognized brand. It's the tool that delivers professional results without professional markup. Now, you know which aisles to walk past and which ones actually deserve your money.